there's a part of me that wants to fade Miami, and then I look at the schedule, and I can't do it.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. It is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, the number one sports podcast network out there. Thank you all, especially my everydayers, for helping make that the case. A Notre Dame look at the Miami-Notre Dame game, one of the top 5 matchups in all of college football this year, and buy, sell, or hold certain teams as national title contenders this year, including LSU. All that coming up on today's show. We start with Alex Dono of Locked On Canes. So there was a part of me, Dono, that looked at Miami and said, well, change at quarterback. Mensah, I think higher ceiling, lower floor than Carson Beck, though 2 years of starting experience. You got to like that. You lose the 2-star edge rushers. You do return a lot in the secondary, and the defense was a major point of improvement last year. So this is one of those schedules. I've had a few of these. Alabama being another one where I said, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to like them. I don't know if they're playing who? They miss who? They miss who? You have nobody on this schedule that Miami lost to last year. Nobody. They're not there, Dono. This is an incredibly workable, albeit strange schedule because everyone looks forward to Saturdays in the fall. For Miami fans, the first Saturday is the end of September.
Yeah, I mean, the ACC is just weird the way that they're trying to do all these Friday night games. And, I understand why the ACC pushes it because it's hard for them on Saturdays to compete against the SEC and the Big Ten for their bigger games. So they want to own Friday nights, right? So you've got a lot of Friday nights in the conference. And to your point about Miami's schedule, Spencer, Miami on paper can definitely benefit from the rest of the ACC being really mid to bad this year on paper. Again, we'll see how the stories that the actual Fridays and Saturdays will tell this season. And yeah, I guess by the luck of the draw with the ACC being so big now, it's 17 teams, they do not face either SMU or Louisville, the two teams that beat them in the regular season last year, and also probably the second and third best teams on paper in the conference.
Close to it.
They don't play either of them in the regular season, could only face one of them in the ACC championship game. And in terms of the non-conference, obviously Notre Dame game on the road, November 7th, that's the one everybody in the college football world has circled. That's going to be a massive game. It will be a very tough game for Miami to go on the road for that one. But really outside of that, Spencer, Miami's going to be favored in every one of their other games, at least in the preseason odds, and favored by most of them in double digits. So there's really no excuse this year for Miami not to win the ACC and get that now automatic playoff berth you get from that.
They are the overwhelming favorite, according to our friends at FanDuel, who have their win total set at 10.5. And I do get why it's that low, but I lean towards the over here, Dono, because right now, I would take them to beat Notre Dame, even in South Bend. And I like what Notre Dame's going to be this year. I just think I like Miami a little bit more, but that feels like a one possession go either way sort of game. And you look at the rest of the schedule and you don't even have my beloved ACC dark horse California Golden Bears on here, Donna. One of the few matchups in the ACC Miami could play and have the second best quarterback in the game because JKS is that guy. I am a huge fan. But let's accept for a moment that Notre Dame is favored over Miami, which they are for that November 7th game by about a touchdown. And let's say Miami loses that game. Where are the other potential stumbling spots? Because I have, as my everydayers know, gone scorched earth with Clemson for what they did to me last year. I think they're in a reset year and have a similar type of record. Pitt, I guess, is the next toughest game that you have, and I could readily make the case, Dono, that Pitt is a tougher game than Clemson.
Yeah. I would agree on that. And Pitt, Miami went up to Pittsburgh last November and demolished them. So Pittsburgh will have revenge on their minds. And, they're Mason Heinschel, their young quarterback, is going to have more experience under his belt after a really good freshman year. But listen, I think I'll give you a more specific answer, but I think the short answer for where Miami could trip up is honestly anywhere, given their history, right? Like, they have to prove this season that they're able to stay consistent through the course of 12-plus games. Last year, they played their overall best football in the playoffs. Obviously they lost to Indiana, but they were, very competitive in the second half of that game. Their first 3 playoff games, they were physically dominant. But, the story for Miami, even long before Mario Cristobal got there, was just taking care of business and beating the teams you're supposed to beat. Miami has always struggled with that. So, you mentioned Pittsburgh. That's one of the better teams on the schedule, which isn't saying a whole lot about this schedule. But you look at, potential trap games. I mean, we'll see how good Virginia Tech actually is this year with James Franklin and a lot of his former backups at Penn State. That's a late November game, but it is at home for Miami. The Clemson one, I don't completely dismiss Clemson just because Miami has to go to Death Valley. Wake Forest was like sneaky okay last year at 9 wins, quietest 9-win season in the country. When it comes to Florida State coming to Miami, there's going to be no problem with Miami's motivation for that one because of the rivalry factor. That's a game Miami should win despite the rivalry. So this is one of those things, Spencer, where if you're looking for where the loss could come from, right, if it's not Notre Dame, honestly, you could just throw it at a dartboard. Like, it could come from anywhere. It could come from nowhere. I mean, I don't think FAMU is going to beat Miami, and I doubt Stanford will, but outside, or Boston College. So that's like 3 automatic wins there. The random slip-up game, hopefully it doesn't come this year, but it could come from anywhere except for those 3.
You have Florida State at home off a bye, so I don't think they're going to – I mean, they stunned somebody last year, and they weren't actually good. They beat Alabama inexplicably, but you have that game at home off a bye. North Carolina, maybe?
They look awful. I mean, I don't know. The thing about North Carolina, it is on the road the week before Notre Dame. So that's the one – it's in trap territory.
Yeah, they just named Billy Edwards Jr. as their starting quarterback, who I got to say, if healthy, I don't think he's great, but he's not a bottom tier quarterback in the ACC. He's in the middle. He's fine. There's nothing wrong with him. I don't know if he's the answer or the truth, but he's got Bobby Petrino's there as offensive coordinator. Yeah. We'll see. The Wake Forest one is, I think, the one that stands out to me the most as a potential upset spot outside. Well, every game would be an upset for Miami to lose other than Notre Dame, where they will be an underdog. But here's the downside of this schedule, Dono. There's no wiggle room. If you are 10-2 at the end of the regular season, you better be making the ACC championship game and winning it, or you are not making the college football playoff with that schedule. No shot. If you have a loss to Notre Dame and a loss to what would probably be an unranked team or someone ranked no higher than maybe in the 20 to 25 range, that's not a resume that's getting into the college football playoff.
Yeah, you're right about very little to no margin for error. Unfortunately, part of Miami's schedule was the victim of the ACC and SEC going to 9 conference games, because this was supposed to be the first year of a home-and-home against South Carolina. But then when both conferences added the extra game, their hands were kind of tied. They had to take each other off the schedule. That game was replaced by Central Michigan for Miami. So that made the schedule, a little bit less glamorous, right?
This is why I need to be scheduling czar in college football, Dono.
Right. Yeah. So that's the reality. Yeah.
Speaking of the teams they don't play, I was going back and forth on Twitter with Bud Elliott about this and the notion of fall weddings, and he was highlighting Saturdays that you could take off. And look, I don't think you should take any Saturdays off. There will be no Saturdays off here at Locked On College Football. He pointed to September 19th and said, well, this is one that you could, do a little something on. I said, whoa. SMU is playing Louisville that week.
Yeah, that's one of the bigger games in the ACC this year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. His point was there's a window between when SMU and Louisville play and when LSU and Ole Miss play later that night. Fine, you can. Alex Dono, Locked On Canes.
Well, Spencer, real quick, I'll put it this way. September 19th is my birthday, and I will not be taking it off. So
don't take it. No, look at that. Look, this man's committed. He won't take it off for his own birthday. That is why he is, as his email tag says, broadcasting legend, Alex Dono of Locked On Canes. For more on Notre Dame Miami, stick around because there's a position group that I am particularly fascinated to watch in that game. First, this episode brought to you by our friends over at The Game. Since 1986, The Game has been creating classic college hats that fans are proud to wear. Whether you're an alumnus, current student, season ticket holder, or simply someone who never misses a game, a great college hat has more than just apparel to it. It's a way to represent your school wherever you go. This year, The Game is celebrating its 40th anniversary by giving fans a chance to save on some of their most iconic college hats. If you've been thinking about replacing an old favorite or adding a new one to your collection, now is the perfect time. You've seen me wear those hats on this show before. They look awesome. You will love them. And with hundreds of officially licensed college hats to choose from, you'll find the perfect fit for game day and every day. Don't miss the chance to celebrate 40 years of The Game with 40% off your entire order. Visit thegamecaps.com. Use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. That's thegamecaps.com, promo code LOCKEDON. Celebrate 40 years of The Game with 40% off. But don't wait. This anniversary offer won't last forever. Check out thegamecaps.com, promo code LOCKEDON. For the final two segments of today's show, I cross things over with Tyler Wojciak of Locked On Irish. We talk all things Notre Dame, Miami, and whether to buy, sell, or hold these teams as college football title contenders. Let's get into it. One of the 5 games that we are most excited to watch this college football season, Miami at Notre Dame, the rematch from a game that defined Miami's entrance into the playoff last year and Notre Dame being left out of the college football playoff. Tyler Wojciak of Locked On Irish is here as we cross over for a couple segments. And Tyler, I am so stoked for this game. And you helped sell me on it back when we did our top 5 games in college football that we're looking forward to. And I was on the fence about whether to put it in there. And you made the case correctly that it is a little bit of the revival of the old school Miami Notre Dame matchups in a way, or just kind of bringing back those brands in that sense. So talk about this game at the outset and what you think it means for Notre Dame this season.
I don't want to say it means everything because there's a world where Notre Dame finishes 11-1, they lose that game, they still make the college football playoff. But for as much as a regular season game can mean in this modern era of college football with the 12-team playoff, I think it's about as big as it can possibly get. I've said it before, it has the potential to be the biggest Notre Dame home game of my lifetime if both teams end up being as good as they think they are. I think this is going to be a game of 2 teams who are absolutely capable of winning a national championship, so that alone makes it super fascinating. And then you consider not just the long-term history between these two programs, but everything that transpired last year with the weekly college football playoff rankings, Miami eventually getting the last spot in the college football playoff over Notre Dame. And to all the people who question, well, why would you schedule Notre Dame out of conference? Well, let Miami be all the evidence you need, because if they did not schedule Notre Dame, if they had played some other, directional school in Florida and they finished 10-2, Miami's not making the playoffs. So sometimes if you play Notre Dame out of conference and you beat them, it does actually work out for you in the end. So there are going to be so many storylines for this game. The only unfortunate thing about it is that we have to wait until November 7th to see these two teams face off.
It is a long time to wait for one of the biggest games of the year. There'll be plenty to hold us over between now and then. I fully expect both teams to be in a great position by the time that game arrives. I talked about Miami's schedule earlier on my show today, and I very much like where Miami's at. And look, it's not as if there aren't questions for Miami to answer going into this year. You lost one of, if not the best offensive linemen in the country. You lost 2 elite pass rushers, and I think Miami, of all places, has got the infrastructure in place, both from a high school and portal standpoint, to replace that. But I tell you one thing that I'm really excited to watch in this game. We'll talk about the quarterbacks here in just a moment because I think Darian Mensah is really good. I would rather have CJ Carr. CJ Carr is at home in this game, of course, but I think that Malachi Toney against Leonard Moore is such a fascinating chess match because Toney is a guy that goes everywhere, all over the field. Gadget guy, slot receiver, outside. He's a little bit smaller, but he's an incredibly dynamic and explosive football player. And Leonard Moore is a guy, Tyler, you could correct me if I'm wrong here, he tends to thrive in the outside corner spot. That's where he's really good and why he's the best corner in all of college football, I believe, going into this season. If you are Marcus Freeman and the Notre Dame defensive staff, are you taking Leonard Moore and having him shadow number 10 anywhere he goes, or do you trust the rest of that defense?
You absolutely shadow him wherever he goes. We actually saw Notre Dame do this for the first time last season when they faced off against USC and Mekhi Lemon. So, like you mentioned, Leonard Moore is a boundary corner. And traditionally, at least under Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame did not really move their corners around. It's actually become a pretty big topic of discussion because when Ohio State iced the national championship game, Jeremiah Smith was one-on-one in the field with Christian Gray, just ran a little stutter go. Exactly. So in that moment, at that point of the game, 3rd and long, Notre Dame actually has a chance to get the ball back and potentially tie the game. A lot of people wondered, why is Leonard Moore not guarding Jeremiah Smith in that situation? Easy to say in retrospect, if you are going to shadow someone, there is a lot more that goes to it because everyone else's responsibilities change. Well, then fast forward to the following season, Notre Dame takes on USC. Mekhi Lemon, traditionally a slot receiver. From the opening drive, you see Leonard Moore covering Mekhi Lemon, not just in the slot, he's in press coverage. That's really difficult to do, especially against a receiver like Lemon, who ended up winning the Blitnikoff. I just pulled up the stats right now. In that game, when Leonard Moore was guarding Mekhi Lemon, the best receiver in college football last year, at least he won the award. He was targeted 3 times, 28 yards. It was Lemon's worst game of the season by far. Leonard Moore shut him down, and I remember seeing all like the NFL scouts watching Mekhi Lemon's tape. They're like, hey, he's really good, but have you guys seen this Leonard Moore guy? So Notre Dame is definitely going to do that with Malachi Toney. The only difference is Miami's going to see it coming now. Against USC, it was a bit of a surprise. Miami's going to have the opportunity to game plan against that, and it's going to be a little bit of a chess match. And I think if you could really expand that out, the matchup between the Notre Dame secondary and Miami's wide receiver core, beyond just Malachi Toney, you got Cooper Barkate. I know they just lost Vaughn. That was an interesting development, to say the least, but that is going to be big on big. It's going to be one of the most exciting matchups in college football this season.
That's where I was thinking about going next, because Cooper Barkate is not a guy that is to be trifled with. Now,
yeah, he's a stud.
What I do wonder is, where does Miami turn? And Alex Dono of Locked On Canes would probably know better than myself. Where do they go for a big body threat on the outside? Because Barkate is not a huge guy, right?
Well, it was Vaughn, and he's kicked off the team.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, you take him out of pictures, like, well, you have these two great wideouts, but which one is lining up, to take the 1v1 because, so-and-so's getting doubled, whether it's Barkate and or Malachi Toney, and they're getting safety help. Like, where is that next option for the Hurricanes? Because I think that matchup is huge. Not that I don't think Miami's going to be able to run the ball. I think Mark Fletcher's really good. I think that what makes Darian Mensah the exciting quarterback prospect he is, and why Miami paid so much money to go out and get him, is because he can push the ball down the field. And I think you have one guy that can do that, but I don't know if that's enough against this Notre Dame defense.
I'm guessing the Miami fan would say Samorian Wingo. I hope I said his name right. Either way, the dude is a stud. He was a top 50 recruit in high school, and I know that the Miami fans are really excited about his potential, and I think now with Vaughn out the door, Wingo is going to have to step up. And considering what we just saw from Miami last year with a true freshman wide receiver, it's really not that crazy to think that they could have another player like Wingo come in. Now, according to the recruiting profile of Wingo, they have him listed at 6'2", 190, so a bigger body, but not 6'4", 220 pounds, back shoulder fade type of guy. But you watch Wingo, I mean, he is an elite athlete. He has a great chance to play right away. So I think that's probably who they're going to go to. But then again, you're going to rely on another freshman against one of the best secondaries in college football. So it's going to be a really exciting matchup, and it's going to be one that I think both coaching staffs start planning for well in advance because, I mean, you already said you talked about Miami's schedule on the show earlier. Like, both these teams are going to have a little bit extra time to prepare for one another, and it's going to be a great chess match. Like, what is Miami going to do when Leonard Moore covers Malachi Toney in the slot? How are they going to try to either get Leonard Moore off of him or basically use Malachi Toney as a decoy to maybe set something up for Cooper Barkate? I don't know. I think both sides are going to get the better of the other at multiple points throughout the game, but it's going to be a heavyweight fight that I think is going to go 15 rounds.
I think you and I both buy these programs, Notre Dame, Miami, as national title contenders in 2026. But what about these schools? First, this episode brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Baseball fans, if you think you know who's hitting a homer today, FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with daily dingers. It's easy to play. Just make your free pick for who you think will hit a home run in their next game. And if you're right, you'll receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. And best of all, you can make a free pick every day throughout the Major League Baseball season. Daily Dingers is another fun way to stay engaged with every day's games, whether you're following your favorite team or keeping an eye on matchups across the league. Every game has someone capable of going deep. Now you get the chance to make your prediction before first pitch. And if you want to bet anything college football related, like the win totals I'm talking about here on the show, FanDuel is the place to do it. So, are you ready to play your game today? Join all the action at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to play Daily Dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball. Okay, Tyler, to wrap today's show, I'll hit you with some buy, sell, or hold. I'll give you the hold option as well because I am such a nice, kind, and generous host, as everyone always calls me. So I've got 4 teams for you. I did mention these to you ahead of recording the show. Buy, sell, or hold as a national championship contender in 2026. I'm going to start with the Indiana Hoosiers. Buy, sell, or hold?
I'm going to buy them. Much to the surprise of some of the Indiana fans who were in my mentions and even my DMs over the past week, because I made a sarcastic. Yeah, man, they're not hard to find. Let me tell you,
they're fun.
They will find you. You could say something like, "Wow, no coming back from that one," in response to Curt Cignetti's comments about Notre Dame. I thought I was being so clearly sarcastic, making fun of that joke as if Notre Dame was never going to be able to recover from a joke about the conference. But either way, as much as their fans might annoy me on social media, that team is stacked. I am a believer in Hoover. I know that there are some questions about him. He's been turnover prone for sure. I get that. But, like, was anyone expecting Fernando Mendoza to do what he ended up doing in his one and only year at IU? We had the same, maybe not the same questions about Mendoza, but we had questions about what he was going to be able to do. The number one thing in that offense is you have to be able to run the RPO effectively. Behind Fernando Mendoza last year, the quarterback who ran the most RPO was Josh Hoover. So I think he's going to be a perfect fit in that offense. They have great wide receivers. They got Nick Marsh, a player that Notre Dame really wanted. They get Becker back. I think they're going to be really physical on both the offensive and defensive line. Once again, I know they lost a lot, but look, until Curt Cignetti has a bad year, I'm just going to assume they're going to be up there at the top. The schedule's a little bit more difficult. They've had some pretty fortunate injury luck along the way, except for when their defensive tackle, I think he broke his foot last year. Or
jumping up. I think he hyperextended his knee. Maybe
and now he's back on the team.
He's back for a 5th year after he had 19 TFLs, which is an unconscionably high number. Stephen Daly is the guy that you're referring to there. So, yeah, I'm with you on buying Indiana, and man, the anti-rat poison. So I guess it'd be rat food or something of that nature.
Cheese.
Cheese.
It's cheese.
No, that's a mouse. I'm sure a rat would eat it too.
Yeah.
I just know that in Tom and Jerry, Jerry is definitely a mouse, So anyway, the anti-rat poison is Indiana goes 16-0. The last team to beat them was Notre Dame, who went to the national championship game. And Indiana comes in number 6 in the AP poll. I heard this point get
was
made as
surprised by
well, which I thought was a good way of putting it. You realize what being at number 6 in the AP poll means? The AP poll is an aggregate average of everything. So of all the folks, there are dozens that vote on the AP poll or that have a vote for that top 25. That means there were folks that were putting Indiana below 6 going into the year.
Do they have the chart? I know that they usually post
I've seen the chart, and I should have checked before this segment what the lowest what the lowest someone put right Indiana now was.
I was surprised to see them as low as
6.
they are.
I can get behind not number 1 because they lost their quarterback, sure. But 6? You're telling me people put them at 8 or 10? Like, guys, what are we doing?
I also don't understand, too, and I wish there was some more clarity on this. When people rank their preseason polls, are you projecting where you think they are going to finish? Or is it, this is how good I think they are right now relative to all the other teams in college football? Because I think there is a pretty distinct difference between those two schools of thought there. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Indiana finishes number 6. That's not crazy. But to have the defending champions, even though they lost a bunch, they had one of the best transfer classes in college football again. Like, they should be in the top 5. I was pretty surprised to see Georgia at 3. I think Georgia's a really good team. They could win the national championship. But 3? I don't know. That seemed a little bit high for me.
I actually thought Notre Dame was a little high at 4. Now, that was the AP poll for those watching on YouTube. That was the AP poll and where things landed. But you see, Tyler, you asked a great question, which is, what is the reasoning everyone's using for these votes? Spencer's poll is based solely on what you have accomplished, which going into the year is last season and the offseason put together. And they are more, I weigh them certainly more on what you did last season. But if you have a dramatic offseason like Duke losing Darian, Mensah, and Cooper Barkay last year, and they don't know who their starting quarterback's going to be right now going into fall camp, yeah, that's a significantly bad offseason. LSU, significantly great offseason. Add Lane Kiffin, bring in a great transfer portal class. But I didn't put LSU at number 11. I have LSU there at number 20 because they would otherwise be unranked if they'd brought in a top 20, maybe even top 10 portal class, but they brought in a ridiculous amount of talent. They already had some, so I give them some benefit of the doubt, but not as much as others in there. So that's how I approach the top 25 poll. But I want to continue, unless you have a burning thought on the top 25 that you have to share there.
Not on the AP top 25. I saw your top 25.
Go ahead.
You have Notre Dame at 13. You have Bama at 9.
Well, Notre Dame did not make the playoff last year.
Yeah, but it's a different season. And there's
in some respect, how come that only applies in the positive? You know, hey, we have CJ Carr returning. Well, yeah, that's a really good thing. Look at all the stuff that we have coming back.
Okay, put it back up then.
But last year when you had a lot of those same pieces, it still didn't get there. This is what based on what you have accomplished, not based on my own personal projection. If I were doing personal projection, I would have Notre Dame ahead of Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma is going to drop off this year, but I'm not in the business of making my own personal projections or subjective opinion about a team important to the rankings. I think it should be about what actually happens on the field.
Okay. Like I said, different schools of thought for the preseason poll.
Yes, exactly. I do it differently than everybody else. Speaking of buy, sell, or hold, the team that I have number 6 in my preseason and the AP poll has at number 9, the Ole Miss Rebels. Do you buy, sell, or hold them as a national title contender?
As you know, I'm buying Trinidad Chambliss in every way imaginable. I think that Ole Miss is going to put up a bunch of points this season, even though they lost Lane Kiffin. I really like Chambliss. I'm not going to buy them as a national championship contender just yet. I don't think they're a super well-rounded team. I do think that there is going to be a bit of a transition period. And I understand that they lost Lane Kiffin and then they still went on a deep run of the college football playoff. That win over Georgia was one of the most exciting college football games I have seen in some time. But I think there's a lot more that goes into it, the offseason, the structure, and everything. Like, we just don't really know how good of a head coach Pete Golding is going to be. I think it's a lot easier to keep the train on the tracks when you still have the whole team together and you've already kind of gone through a season, and then you're just kind of playing new teams, tough teams, and you're able to win the games. That's a huge accomplishment. I don't want to diminish that at all, because I was rooting for Ole Miss every step of the way last year. I thought it'd be the funniest thing in the world if they won a national championship. So
been amazing.
To the Rebel fans out there, I wanted you to succeed. So do not take it personally when I say I'm just selling you as a national championship right now, because there are a lot of unknowns, not just about the roster, even though they are very talented. They bring back Lacey, they have Chambliss. Like I said, they're going to put up a ton of points. But, like, how does Pete Golding fare as the CEO of a massive organization for a full year? There's a lot that goes into it, and just right now, I don't think they have enough talent to sort of make up for all of those questions I have outside of just what they have on the roster.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. I have Ole Miss at 9-3 this year, fringe playoff team. I love their backfield; it's the best in college football. But I have the same reservations and hesitation about picking them to go back. I think they're one of the playoff teams that doesn't get back into the field this year. So I'm with you that that's a sell. I'll lump these last two together because they have a distinct similarity in that they spend as much money as humanly possible, it seems, at this point in time. LSU and Texas Tech, buy, sell, or hold on national title contenders. I'll tell you right now, I am a double sell.
I'm leaning towards double sell. I will give LSU the benefit of the doubt, and I'll say I'll hold on them. I understand they spent over $40 million on the roster. They also probably spent close to that the year before. We all saw how that worked out. But no, granted, that was Brian Kelly. This is Lane Kiffin. I am skeptical about Sam Leavitt. Let's put it that way. I think he flashed in moments. He was brilliant at times for Arizona State. How is he going to fare against some of the defenses that they will face this season on a consistent basis? Like, there's no doubt that Sam Leavitt is going to make some plays that make you go, wow. Like, he's really, really good. He's really fun to watch. But he's also going to make some plays you're like, why? What was that? And I understand that there are a lot of quarterbacks who are capable of doing that. There are so many new faces on that roster. There's so many new faces on the staff. I just can't say, oh yeah, they're definitely going to win a national championship. But I also don't want to write them off prematurely. I'll hold them. Texas Tech, selling them. It's really easy. I don't believe in their quarterback situation or their offense, and it's probably going to look a lot like last year.
I like Will Hammond. I don't know if Will Hammond's a massive upgrade from Baron Morton, who was good last year, but their offense obviously was nowhere near good enough. Their defense was championship caliber, but their offense was simply not. On the LSU, I'm in the sell category. Not that I don't think they can be good, but I don't think it's reasonable to expect any coach in year one to turn something around like that and make them a national title contender. And I also look at Sam Leavitt with the same sort of reservations. West Lynn kid. Maybe if you went to Lake Oswego. I don't know if you get that.
Some high school lore.
That is some high school lore. If anybody out there
dies.
Understands that, then shoot me a message and let's become best friends. But the other thing with Leavitt, I don't know if he's going to stay healthy for the entire season. And is Hassan Longstreet a guy that can step in and Cardale Jones this thing, or JT Barrett back from back in the day at Ohio State? I don't know. And I haven't seen, because no one has, a significant or any football from Hassan Longstreet. And like, I'm with you on Leavitt. Leavitt is good, but Leavitt, was graded as a 5-star quarterback transfer. I was like, I don't know about that. Like, he should be a 4-star like he was coming out of high school, and he's good, and you can clearly go win games with him. I can give you 3 quarterbacks that transferred this offseason I'd rather have than Sam Leavitt.
I don't even think he was Lane Kiffin's first choice.
No, because remember, they tried to go get Dedmon Williams from Washington.
Exactly. Like,
they kicked the tires on Brendan Sorsby. They tried to get Dedmon Williams from Washington, and then they wound up with Sam Leavitt, who's good, but it's like, well...
Correct me if I'm wrong. Was the report that they were in conversations, they were trying to poach Williams from Washington, did that happen while Leavitt was on campus, or maybe it was Sorsby?
No, I think they were kind of putting Leavitt in a holding pattern, was what I came to understand, is they were kind of like, hey, we're looking at somebody else, but if this doesn't work out, we'll go to you. And by the way, Dedmon Williams, good player, major questions in big games, struggled against every major defense he played against last year, so has to level up. He's capable. He has not done it yet. And Lane Kiffin was saying, I'll take you over Sam Leavitt. So I like Sam Leavitt. I don't know about I don't think Sam Leavitt's hoisting a national championship trophy this year.
Real quick before we go, how many teams do you think are capable of winning a national championship?
Of winning a national championship? Let me throw up my just so I don't overlook anybody. So Indiana, yes. Miami, yes. Oregon, yes. Ohio State, yes. Georgia, yes.
Mine's
Notre
pretty
Dame,
simple.
Notre Dame, yes. I'm hesitant on Texas. Texas A&M, Bama, Ole Miss, no. Texas Tech, no. USC, BYU, no. Michigan, no. Yeah, those 6. Those would be my 6.
Mine is pretty simple. I feel like everyone in the top 7 of the AP poll, I could realistically see winning the national championship. The one that I am probably the least high on in that group is Georgia, just because
I like
you
Georgia
like Gunnar
a lot.
Stockton a lot more than I do.
I do.
That's the difference.
Yep. I'm with you there. That's Tyler Wojciak. Locked on Irish. Great as always. Appreciate everyone listening. We'll see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.